Halva for the heart, dying and grieving in diaspora. My name is Misha, and I am an Iranian American death doula and grief tender. Today's episode is dedicated to the women life freedom movement that erupted in Iran in September 2022, 3 years ago. For those who don't know, the women life freedom movement in Iran specifically began when a young Kurdish woman, Jina Mahsa Amini, was arrested and beaten by the morality police in Tehran for improperly wearing her mandatory hijab, meaning she was wearing it. She just wasn't wearing it properly. And for that, she was arrested and beaten, and she subsequently died a few days later. And her death sparked this uprising. And the term woman life freedom, why it's called that, comes from a Kurdish revolutionary slogan because Jina was Kurdish. They were chanting Jin Jian Azadi, woman life freedom, at her funeral. And that was translated into Farsi, Zan Zendegi Azadi, and then into English, woman life freedom. So I was reflecting on the woman life freedom movement and how much it changed my life. And I think the course of the Iranian diaspora community at large had such an impact on how we related to Iran as our homeland and our connection to it. And also, I was reflecting on how it had these lofty aspirations and that in the end it wasn't successful. It is a movement that I don't want to say has died, but is dying. That isn't to say that another uprising won't happen in the future or that the woman life freedom movement didn't have a significant impact on the Iranian government's oppression in the country, but that it didn't achieve its goals, right? And it may one day inspire or be reborn in a new uprising, a new revolutionary movement. But that this iteration, this 2022 to 2023 uprising, woman life freedom movement, was not successful. And there's a lot of grief around that. I remember being so full of hope, just so full of hope about a free Iran, and having to come to terms with the fact that this wasn't the moment. It was heartbreaking. Of course, there are still glimpses of the woman life freedom spirit alive. People are still rebelling and resisting in their own way, but it's not an uprising. It's not a revolution, which we thought it was. It's dying down, right? And so with that understanding and reflecting on the fact that it's been 3 years since this uprising started, and now that I am moving through the world as a death doula, how can I apply my knowledge of death and dying on a human level to a cultural level, to a cultural movement like woman life freedom? So I was thinking about when I'm sitting with a dying person, what we're trained to do is to help the dying person reflect on their life. We call it a life review, to help them reflect on their achievements, what they're proud of, what they hope for, what they regret, any unfinished business they have, anyone they need to forgive, or anyone they need to ask for forgiveness from, those sorts of things, to really sit with them as they contemplate the finality of their life. And so I thought, what if I did this with Woman Life Freedom? What if I considered the movement as a person who was dying? And me in the death doula role, sitting with her and helping her work through her life review, asking her these questions. And so the rest of today's episode is going to be that. It's like a mock interview where I'm going to be posing these questions, and then I'll be responding as if I were Woman Life Freedom herself in the way that I imagine she would respond to those questions. And make it a little confusing, but I hope it works. I hope you understand. I hope you're able to follow along. So let's begin. Hello, Woman Life Freedom. Salam Zan Zendagi Azadi. I'm here to ask you some questions, if that's okay, about your life, the life you've lived, and the life that's coming to an end. I'm wondering if you feel if there's anything still left unfinished in your life. So much. The mandatory hijab laws still stand. Women can still be arrested for not wearing their hijabs properly. And beyond that, women still face restrictions on the way they can behave, places they can go, what they can do. The oppression still exists. And the morality police, even if they're less visible now, even if they become more lax, they're not gone. I know that I sparked something beautiful and hopeful, but the systemic oppression in Iran is still there. The revolution I dreamed of, true equality, genuine freedom for all Iranians, for all people in Iran, whether they're Iranian or not. It's still a distant horizon at this point. It feels like I wasn't able to accomplish my goal. You had such huge aspirations for what you could achieve. And I know you didn't achieve everything you set out to. But I'm wondering if you have any regrets of things you did along the way. What do you regret you did in your life? I regret that I couldn't protect more of my people. So many people were arrested, beaten, tortured, executed, and each one weighs on me. Sometimes I wonder if I asked too much, if I demanded sacrifices that were too heavy for the younger generation. If I asked too much of people like Jina herself. Do you feel guilty about anything? The guilt that weighs on me the most is when I think about the mothers who had to bury their children because I called upon them to protest. Or the young women who went out without their hijabs and faced punishment. Or the young men beaten and tortured and executed for defending the women in their lives. I feel the weight of every person who suffered because they believed in the freedom that I promised but could not deliver in the end. Do you feel ashamed about anything? Yeah. Yeah, there's this shame that I wasn't strong enough. I was not strong enough to overcome the decades of oppression in Iran. I feel I let down not only the people who came before me, but all the freedom fighters who dreamed that their children could live in freedom. I'm ashamed that despite the courage shown in the people, I was not strong enough to break through. It sounds like you're taking on a lot of the blame and responsibility yourself. Is there anything or anyone that you feel resentful towards or disappointed in? Yeah, I feel resentment towards the monarchists who tried to hijack my voice and bend my energy toward restoring another kind of authoritarianism veiled in this false nostalgia. I am resentful towards the Zionists who appropriated my slogans, woman, life, freedom, for their theatrics, while they continue to ignore the struggles of Palestinian women. And I especially resent people who deliberately erased my Kurdish roots. People who act as if woman, life, freedom was born in 2022 when it has been a battle cry of Kurdish women fighters for decades. My voice carries their echoes. To erase that lineage is to diminish not just Kurdish struggle, but the interconnectedness of all of our fights for freedom. It's that solidarity that we were lacking. It's interesting that you say that because people reflect on 2022 as this time when the Iranian diaspora has never been more unified. The word unity comes up over and over again, that we just need to be united. What happened? What went wrong? What went wrong was the infighting and the fractures that took place when people used unity as a way to silence marginalized voices within our community. When people call for unity but not solidarity, that's when the problems arise. I watched as Iranians in the diaspora call marginalized voices too separatist or too radical or too Western, especially when those voices were Kurdish or Baluch or Arab Iranian. It seemed that by trying to appear united to the Western world, some people forgot that true unity doesn't come from silencing difference. It comes from the solidarity and struggling together to honor the full spectrum of who we are as Iranians. That's where we went wrong. As you're nearing the end of your life, what are you scared of? What fears do you still have? My biggest fear is that I'll be forgotten or that I'll be remembered, but just as another failed uprising instead of a transformation in consciousness in the Iranian people. I'm afraid that the regime will grow stronger and more brutal, and that brutality will break the spirit that I awoke. But most of all, I'm terrified that the young people who believed in me will lose hope. What have you learned since 2022? I've learned that change is like water. Sometimes it rushes like a flood, and sometimes it seeps slowly through the cracks. I've learned that hope and courage are contagious, and that no matter how many people in diaspora have tried to whitewash their identities, when their homelands are in danger, their Iranianness awakens, because we're all tied to the land. Because being Iranian is part of who we are, whether we acknowledge it or not. What are you most proud of over the course of the Women Life Freedom movement? I have so much pride in the Iranian people, the youth, their fearlessness, their bravery. They risk everything for freedom. I'm also proud that even though there were people in the diaspora who tried to silence marginalized voices, in Iran, I was able to cross ethnic and class and religious lines. Kurds, Persians, Baluch, Arabs, men, women, queers, they all fought for women life freedom. They all fought for me. I'm proud that that solidarity became real and powerful. And it showed me that being in solidarity is the most powerful thing we can do. What are you grateful for? I'm grateful for Jina, whose death sparked my movement, for every woman who dared to remove her hijab, knowing the cost, for the men who faced execution, for the Kurdish women's liberation movement that gave me my name, Jinjian Azadi, for the global diaspora that amplified my voice, and for the allies around the world who stood up for us. What do you hope for after you die? I hope that my spirit lives on in small acts of defiance, in huge dreams of liberation. I hope that the Islamic Republic falls and is replaced by something truly democratic and free. I hope that someday soon in Iran, a young girl will grow up with the same freedoms as her brother. I hope that the international feminist allies will continue their struggles without imposing their Western frameworks on ours. And I hope that the Kurdish women's liberation will be remembered and honored as a part of me. And most importantly, I hope for the end of all systems that crush human life. Whether theocratic, fascist, monarchist, any type of tyranny that tells people how to live, what to believe, or who to love. I hope that the hope that I've held on to continues on. How do you want to be remembered? Well, I definitely don't want to be remembered as a tragedy. I want to be remembered as the proof of possibility, that the impossible could become inevitable when people have really had enough, that liberation belongs to everyone, and that the freedom of one group is bound up with the freedom of all people. I hope to be remembered in every woman who refuses to limit herself, in every act of solidarity across lines, in every voice that says, no more, and every voice that says, I demand freedom. I may not have finished the revolution that I started, but I proved it was possible. That's my legacy. Thank you, Woman Life Freedom, for being honest with us, for sharing your pain and your pride of everything you accomplished. I feel that hope that you still hold on to. And I do truly believe that one day Iran will be free. And you will have played a huge part in making that happen. Thank you. Thank you for sitting with me as I conducted this life review with the Woman Life Freedom Movement. I'm curious how that felt for you. If it felt awkward, if it brought up emotions you didn't expect, if the responses that I had to these questions were not what you thought she would say, if you had different responses that come up for you, I would love to hear about it. I'm available on Instagram. Send me a DM. You can email me or even send me a voice note and record yourself for 90 seconds and just share how this was for you. It's all linked below in the show notes. If you're an Iranian in diaspora and a member of our Dardadel community, I will be recording this as a guided meditation so you can reflect on it in your own way and see what responses come up for you when you sit with her. If you're not a member and you're Iranian and would like to join, we meet 3 times a month and we have a group chat to stay connected. You can find the details at dardadel.hafizdeathcare.com, also linked below. We gather 3 times a month and talk about things like this: the grief of being Iranian in diaspora. And even if you don't join Dardadel, that's okay. I'll be sending out these life review questions as journal prompts in my weekly newsletter this week, so you can sit with them on your own and reflect on them. If you'd like to receive those, be sure to sign up through the link in the show notes. In whatever way you interact with these questions, I hope you take the time to sit with them and reflect, and perhaps apply them to other cultural movements or even your own life. What are your regrets, your fears, your hopes? What are you proud of? How do you want to be remembered? And if you'd like some guidance with those questions, I am always here for one-on-one support. You can book a consultation with me or a session. I'm here to support you along this journey. Thank you for being here.